Just want to have a brief moment of silence for the passing of West High School staff member Jim McCoy. Tonight, we are saddened to report that West High School cross-categorical teacher and boys cross-country coach Jim McCoy passed away unexpectedly on Saturday as a result of a medical emergency. Coach McCoy was an incredibly well-respected member of the West community. He loved his runners, his students, and his teaching, and he will be greatly missed. Please join us in a moment of silence as we remember Jim. Thank you. Resuscitation vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes for the February 25th, 2019. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated February 25th, 2019.
Second.
Anika, your advisory? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next is public appearances. There are forms in the back, both in English and Spanish. And we have 12 tonight. We have 12 public appearances. And we'll start with Monker.
Hi everyone, my name is Monka Donway. I work at Freedom Inc. I do civic engagement, community organizing, direct service, and support work at that nonprofit right down on South Park Street. Yeah, it's been a while since we've been coming up here, and I know that a central component of our campaign is that the school board and the city must invest in the leadership, wellness, and creativity of Black youth. Last month, I came before you to talk about what will nourish our Black students in schools. I talked about creating supportive environments where Black students are not seen as problems to be removed from the classroom and pushed out of schools. Environments like the one that we create with our Books and Breakfast program every summer. Today, I'm here to talk about the material needs of Black youth and other youth of color. It has been 2 years since one of our campaign leaders, Shara Adams, sat before the ad hoc committee and demanded bus passes and not cops. What have you all learned since then? We, as an organization, identified over 100 families in your district that did not have the school supplies they needed to start the 2019 school year. That's just from our client base. So what do we do in response to that? No one had to come up to us and tell us that, but we still took action, we made a plan. So last Friday, we did something about it. We had over 200 Black, Hmong, and Khmer students come in and get backpacks and school supplies and other things that they needed, along with connecting to services that we provide at our organization. My wish for the school board and for this district is that y'all be as responsive as other community organizations that Freedom Inc. has been to the needs of Black students in your schools, but also in the community. It didn't take anyone coming to us for 2 years to tell us that there are people amongst us in our communities that aren't able to access the services that are provided by mainstream organizations. So it should not have taken y'all this long to realize that there are students in your district, in your classrooms, that aren't able to thrive in the environments that y'all are creating for them with the conditions that they're facing in the community and in the schools. Especially in conditions that encourage school teachers and personnel to constantly monitor and try and control the behaviors of Black students and criminalize them and call the police for things that are age-appropriate behavior. So just as you see other community organizations and other nonprofits like Freedom Inc. being responsive and going out into the community and being responsive to their needs, that's how you all should be. Take cops out of schools and invest in the leadership, creativity, and wellness of Black students, other youth of color. Build transformative justice models that don't punish, that don't aim to punish and push Black students out of schools. And give community and these youth power and control in their schools and their own education. They know what they need. And it's not about creating little councils for the ones that get straight A's to tell y'all what y'all already want to hear. It's actually about creating space and giving power and control to the youth that y'all are spending so much money on to police in your schools.
Thank you. MT Yang.
My name is Maital, and I'm a Youth Justice Coordinator at Freedom Inc. Police do not belong in high schools. I don't know how many times I have said this, but I will keep on saying it over and over again. I still do not get the point of having police and 4 to 5 security guards in the building. What are the police really doing in the high schools? Duh, harming people of color, but especially Black and brown students. I don't understand this system. We don't have cops in elementary or middle school, so why high school? What makes high school different from middle and elementary school that they need police? Student behaviors, normal teenager behaviors. Every student is still learning, and they should have the right to act however they want to, just like you all got to experience being kids when you all were young. When it comes to people of color, police do not care about our lives if it gets taken away from us. But if it comes to a white person, police think that giving him jail time is gonna harm him. That's stupid. You all look at people of color like animals, but look at white people as humans. Like I have said before in my previous testimonies, I was one of those students that had an IEP. No one told me what kind of disability I had. I will go to all these teacher-parent conferences, but I didn't understand what was going on. Hearing them going through this 30-page paper, and I thought this was normal for any other student. I would hear my teachers say that I am always doing well in class, but I never heard them explain to my parents that I had a learning disability. It's sad to know that my parents, who barely knows English, has to go through this. Just listening to whatever my teachers thought was good for me and agreeing with them. Having a disability, I have never encountered telling my stories and problems to the police. It doesn't matter how close I get to the police, I still will not tell them anything just because I don't feel safe and that police needs to know anything that is going on about my life. Police are not here to listen to our stories. We have counselors for that. They aren't teachers, they aren't nurses, so it still doesn't make any sense why we need cops in our schools. Take this money and hire more people of color teachers that can relate to how I feel, understand the pain that we are going through. No cops in schools, and invest this money to us.
Thank you. SY.
Many people kept on repeating this question to me. Why do you think there shouldn't be cops in school? What happens if there's a school shooting? But who are those killing, shooting, and harming our schools? All of those school shootings you see on the news are done by white students. So stop saying that students of color are the ones who are causing harm when white students are shooting up school. Also, it's not just white students. There were many viral videos of cops beating up students, especially black students at school. Yet you want to hire more cops? Does this sound like protection at all, or does it sound like protection for white students? If you really wanted to invest in these students, you have to also think about students of color. You can't forget that students of color are also kids. They're still young and still need resources. You can't belittle them for their mistakes. You gotta let them grow. School is starting soon. Get free bus passes out. There are many students who stay after school waiting for this transportation. Serve better lunches. Many students get sick and skip their meals. Give out free school supplies. Many families have a hard time affording supplies. Invest $360,000 in students of color, not the cops.
Next, we got Moa, Zone Moa.
Good evening. So I'm a little out of it. I'm very, very tired. I would like to blame it on the lack of sleep and all that, but I think in reality, it's the fact that we're starting another school year, and cops are still in our schools. It's exhausting having to continuously come and repeat ourselves, continuously having to listen to people's stories and being re-traumatized over and over again by the experiences that they have with cops in schools and how they're not supported in schools. And again, you all have a responsibility to do better. If you truly believe in racial justice, and if you are truly working on racial justice, then you would not be doing anything to further exacerbate the racial disparity rates. But yet you continue to pay for cops to be in our schools. So let's take a little step back, because apparently you all forgot that in 2015, Black middle school girls and MMSD were 100% of the arrests of middle school girls. You apparently also forgot that in 2015-16 school year, Black students made up only 18% of the entire high school district. But yet, Black high school students with disabilities were 76 times more likely to be arrested at the schools in 2015. And then in 2017-18, Black students were 87% of school-based arrests. That's 27 of 31 arrests. And then in 2017-18 school year, Black students were 82% of school-based citations. That's 65 out of 79 citations. What's going on? In Dane County, Black babies are dying at a rate of 2.5 times higher than white babies before they reach the age of 1. We have to look at the lifetime of trauma that is put on Black girls. And this is one of the ways it manifests itself 20 years later when they are pregnant. This is not a class issue. This is an issue of the racist, anti-Black experiences that they experience. And school just so happens to be one of those. Stop it. Stop it. Take cops out of school. Invest in the leadership, creativity, and wellness of Black youth and other youth of color.
Thank you. AT. AT. AT, okay, AT, next one is Shira Adams.
My name is Shira Adams. I'm a youth coordinator at Freedom Inc. When I was 4, I was diagnosed with ADHD. From there on, I had a label on me. I never could just be a kid in school because there was always eyes on me. Because they would say, she's too distracting and hyper for my class. As a first grader, I would have to sit in the front because I had too many friends in the class and needed to be far away as possible from them. As a second grader, the school nurse almost overdosed me because she didn't believe that I took 2 of my medicine at home and gave me 2 more at school. The medicine was Adderall. I didn't sleep that night. Third grade, they finally got a hang of things and was doing good. I love my teachers, and they liked me unless I was too much. They would ask me in front of the class, "Did you take your medicine today?" Fourth grade, I moved to a new school, and I had to start all over again. But it was 10 times worse because the school wouldn't even let me be me. They called home for little things. They knew my home situation was bad, and they just didn't care. I feel like I wasn't learning anything because all they were doing was focusing on my behavior. I wanted to learn things. Growing up, I always had a title on me. High school was rough. There were more opportunities, but because I had an IEP, I couldn't take any language I never understood. I never really understood that. They told me that I told them that I wanted to, and they told me no need to, that I didn't need to. They said, "You'll never pass this class because there's no extra help in there." Students should not be treated how I was. That being said, I feel that students should have the right to decide what classes they can take even if they have an IEP. They should have better school lunches, free bus passes, and more. Please don't help me. They harm people like me, a Black queer person with a disability. You already know what it is. The first demand is to take cops out of school. Let them feel safe in their own space. Second, let students, parents, and community pick what is taught in school. The last one is community control over over discipline. We want resolution. Invest into youth, not police.
Thank you. Next is, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, Fueng Moa. If you could just help me pronounce that, out of respect, I really would want to get that read for you. Thank you.
用是能够读古美啊，是新朋友读成么？朋友 or 朋友 in English phonics.
Can you say that again? Panyuin.
Panyu in English phonics.
Okay,
because the
Panyuin.
English language is incapable of saying my name correctly.
Thank you.
And I would say, just like these institutions right here, you all are a part of, are incapable of serving people of color like me and my Black folks too. So as I say that and place that, in this space, I'm also going to bring these demands to you all again, right? Invest in youth of color, take cops out of school, and community control over the police. I wanted to greet you all personally. Anika, is that all right with you? Anika, Savion, congratulations on becoming a school board member. Ananda, Chris, Gloria, Kate's not here, Nikki, Ellie, Jane, and Matthew.
Ollie.
I want to have a... Oops,
Ollie.
Ollie. I apologize. Thank you for putting your truth out there. And I also want to thank everybody here for coming here to put our truth and speak it to power, because we've been saying it for so long and there's been nothing happening. It is so ridiculous that you all can sit up there, and I'll speak from myself too, that it's difficult to make change in an institution. You have to go through, you can't just make these big steps, right? But it's just so privileged to be couched in the safety where you all can be the ones who try to inch it forward, but everyone else, particularly black folks, queer folks, are at the knife, at the point of the state violence. And you all can just be here presenting yourself as someone who's trying to make a difference, right? It must be really nice to be in that place, because you get to feel good about yourself and nothing's threatening you or the people you love. But every day we have black folks who are being beaten, right, in their homes, at school, being incarcerated, or just not given the opportunities that they deserve, like my young friend who just spoke right before me. So I just wanted to bring our truth here. I wanted to acknowledge each and every one of your humanity, and I wanted to do that in the same way, and hopefully ask you all to acknowledge the humanity of the community, the marginalized community, queer folks, black folks, Southeast Asian folks, people of color. Take cops out of school, invest in youth, color, and community control over police. Thanks.
Thank you. Bianca Gomez.
Hi, my name is Bianca Gomez. I'm the Director of Youth Justice at Freedom Inc. One of my many roles in the organization is providing domestic violence and sexual assault services to Black women, girls, and queer youth. A part of my job is making sure that my clients have the resources that they need to survive and thrive. But at Freedom Inc., we are a black queer feminist organization. And we also believe in fighting back against anti-blackness, white supremacy, patriarchy, and all of the oppressive systems that harm our people. And in addressing anti-blackness in our schools, we need to understand the ways that MMSD is harming Black girls specifically. So in the 2017-2018 school year, Black girls received more citations than any other demographic in the district. They received 35 citations, again, more than any other demographic. White girls received 0 citations, by the way. Between 2015 and 2018, Black girls were arrested 40 times. White girls were arrested 6 times. These statistics don't include the number of suspensions or expulsions, the amount of times Black girls were assaulted by the police or by staff. It doesn't include the amount of times kids were assaulted by the N-word or other anti-Black language in your classrooms. It doesn't include teachers commenting on Black girls' bodies or telling them that their clothes are inappropriate, which is sexual violence, in case you didn't know. Several of my clients have pointed to Officer Johnson at La Follette and said that he's made inappropriate comments to them at their school. They've also witnessed him do this to other folks. Several of my clients tell me about sexually inappropriate comments made by other youth and not feeling comfortable telling school personnel. And several of my clients report security guards saying to them as they walk by, right? And these same security guards are the ones y'all have breaking up fights, right? They get to put their hands on our children. Black girls don't need to be policed. And when I say policed, I mean, I'm talking about police officers, your school resource officers, and I'm also talking about your staff that frame black girls as deviant. Investing in their leadership, wellness, and creativity means comprehensive sex education. It means holistic black history. It means free, healthy meals. It means transformative justice. It means youth advocate. It does not mean police. Y'all have the money to spend on police and discipline. You have the money to spend on children. The district priorities are what's the problem, not our children. Gloria and other members of the board have their minds set on protecting the image of police at the expense of black girls. I want y'all to understand that. And you also must understand that police and safety for black girls is antithetical. Lastly, Gloria, no shade. I've asked to debate you publicly as a school board president on the issue of police in schools, so just let me know if you accept.
Thank you, Bianca. Andy Wadey.
Good evening. I'm here as president of MTI to speak to an issue that's very important to our membership, the cost of living increase to the base wage. And notice I'm not saying a cost of living raise. What your employees are asking for is an increase to keep our base salaries and wages in line with the increasing cost of living in our community, not a raise. That this is important to employees should come as no surprise. We've gotten that cost of living increase each of the last 3 years, which meant we accepted the 0.12% a couple years ago and celebrated the 2.13% increase last year. You've heard from me, you've heard from Doug, and you've heard from other members and elected leaders over the past months. And we had members outside today. I hope you got a chance to say hello to your employees as you walk through. Lots of us, about several hundred, out rallying today to express that opinion that we need that cost of living. A lot of them went either home to rest, recharge a little bit after a long day, or some of them went back to school. You've heard all the arguments for the 2.44%. We need to support all of our employees, especially those who make the least in our district. They need to keep our base wage current so that we don't need to make major adjustments every few years. I need to attract and retain employees. You've heard all that, and we've sent all that information to you. Just wanted to say a couple of additional points here. What I haven't heard anyone say in this discussion is that our employees don't deserve to have an increase. We have excellent employees here. The members who are here tonight are part of that workforce. They spent the day engaged in challenging conversations as we continue our work around black excellence and racial equity. Most have been working outside of their contracted hours in the days and weeks leading up to this, which was their first official day back. Setting up their classrooms, developing curriculum, engaging in professional development, spending their own money on supplies. All of this because of their dedication to students and their profession. The dedication shows in our commitment we have to each other. Last week, MTI members worked alongside district staff to welcome several hundred of our new colleagues into the district. All over the district, teams of educators have been working together to get ready for September 3rd. And our primary focus is and always has been our students. We're not perfect, but we're dedicated professionals, and we seek to meet every student's needs and form relationships to help foster a love of learning that will last a lifetime. We make mistakes, we enjoy successes, and we grow with our students and our families. Having a solid financial base supports our work and allows us to focus on what matters most in our profession. Maybe someday we'll reach a time when educators are paid what they're truly worth. For now, keeping up with the cost of living is at least a step in that direction. We know budgets are tight, future's uncertain, and despite the removal of a governor who was hostile to public education, we have a legislature and a federal government that underfunds mandates, fails to meet existing obligations to support our public schools, and seeks to privatize our schools to make a profit on our society's most valuable resource, our students. We live in a state where divide and conquer was used as a primary weapon to win elections and push through reforms that were designed to destroy institutions like public education. And in Madison, we showed that that didn't work. We united around a common goal. Your employees are worth every penny and more. Please provide that 2.44% increase for all your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Martha Saravo? Martha? Oh, there.
that go up Just, okay, I wasn't sure to make sure.
Hi, my name is Martha Stravo. I'm here to bring some more conversation today to the table surrounding our schools and the lack of air conditioning classrooms. This summer was my first time that my daughter was able to attend extended school year, ESY, and she also attended a full-day MSCR camp. And she attends Franklin during the rest of the school year. So I've experienced 3 different schools over the past summer. These extra programs allowed for the opportunity to visit all these locations and check them out in Madison, and ESY, and Falcon, MSCR, and Kennedy. All these 3 have something in common, is that they only have designated rooms that have air conditioning. Franklin has only 11% of its school that's cooled. Falk has 4% of its school that's cooled, and Kennedy only had 2%. I am constantly trying to remind everybody how an inclusive environment in our schools is extremely important. I've had daily discussions during the school year and during the summer school about the safety of how my daughter was attending the school versus the school buildings and their accommodations, and just their ability to offer an appropriate environment within the classroom because of the lack of AC and how warm the building itself could potentially get. My daughter also has epilepsy, which can be triggered by fever and severe heat. She's also on medication that inhibits her ability for her body to just to sweat under those certain conditions. It makes it even harder to cool someone down. And when you're a little kid, you're just not going to tell someone in the classroom that you're too hot and you need to calm down. It's just not something that our young ones are always able to do. Now, my daughter's environmental needs, while they are very personal and specific, just don't affect her. They affect the entire classroom and every single student in each of those classrooms. If it gets too warm, the common practice is to take a student off into an air conditioning space. And that's not only secluding the student from the other classmates, it's impeding their learning during the day. It removes an SEA and someone else, whoever needs to support the student and keep the student safe and on task so they don't lose anything from their day. There was a study actually done that was by the National Bureau of Economics Research that focused on heat factors and student performance. And it said that each additional school day with a temperature in the 90s reduces achievement by 0.6% of a year's worth of learning. The cooler classrooms means more productivity and successful academic achievements. We are not the only district with old buildings in need of improvements, but we are a state that just elected our governor, who was a previous state superintendent. That is a huge opportunity, and there can be more conversations brought to a much higher level to where our budget can better accommodate us at some bigger level so we can make more changes in our schools, in our school buildings, with a better budget. But we have to let them know. Our current legislators actually increased their funding by 97 million, and yet last year, somehow our governor found it that he had 122 million that he could just give to families in order to accommodate student supplies. There's a number differential in there that doesn't make sense. There's obviously some spending money that's out there, but you need to let them know that we need it. Every year holds opportunities for adjusting the aging school buildings that affect all of our students. We use the buildings year-round, and we have 1 or 2 classrooms that have air conditioning. It's just not good enough. This is a big project, but it's needed, and it's needed change a long time ago. Don't give us classrooms that are tolerable. Give our students a space of comfort to enhance their learning and their overall education. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Schaefer?
Thank you for the opportunity of letting me address you again. And that earlier today I sent all of you an email, which I realize I need to revise after talking to one of the MMST teachers and getting a little bit better understanding of it. It had to do with the Black Excellence Program, and I think that the concept needs to be expanded to include other students who may have similar concerns. And I think that one of the other aspects is that we have children are students in the schools who are above average in their scholastic that could be used to for a sort of a peer-to-peer mentoring and some incentive for them to be able to do that. My experience in my career has helped me to learn that the more that I teach and help other people, the more that I gain in my knowledge and experience and in building relationships. So I think that one of the things that we could possibly look at is building school community aspects where the community, the students act as a community, and perhaps even establish some type of competitiveness in the schools as to see which schools could become the best schools, similar to sports programs and that to where they compete in football, baseball. Let's see what we can do to build better schools and help more students become successful and in that regard. So I think that's all that I have to say, and thank you. Except I do want to make a note here, Ananda, that your nameplate is the only one that doesn't have capital letters on it. And if that's your desire, that's fine, okay? Otherwise, I think you deserve the same treatment as everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Shadira Kilfoy Flores.
How many do we have?
We have one. This one, I didn't see if this one is around. And then we have one.
I wasn't expecting to speak. My paper got in at 6:01. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Savion. I feel like you're a much better representative of the needs of our MMSD students. So I want to thank you for joining the school board. I feel like we have some no-brainers here, like in terms of budgetary issues and where we're trying to come up with more money for our schools. The city of Madison should be paying for the officers. If we're going to have police officers in our schools, then it should be police funds that are allocated, not educational funds that are allocated towards police officers. We need to figure out, this needs to be our next agenda item, how to phase them out. How that money needs to be put back into our schools, into our classes. It should not be coming out of the school district's funding. If our taxpayers decide that that is what they want, is to have police officers in the school, then it needs to be funded and come from the City of Police budget. Koval needs to figure out how to keep those cops there, not you guys. That should not fall upon our school district. That should not fall upon a budgetary item. This should be money allocated towards education. It should not be money allocated towards policing our kids. You've heard month after month, year after year, testimony of why it is detrimentally harmful to our children of color for them to be there. Now, it's taking money away from their education, and I think that now your task at hand as members of this school board is to figure out how to phase that out. Thank you.
Thank you. I called out AT earlier. I just wanted to call that out again in case we missed him. AT? Him or her? Okay. Do we have AT?
Hello, my name is Lolita Phillips. I am an NOI member For those of you that don't know what that means, I am a Neighborhood Organizing Institute member, and I am putting together a festival this Saturday at Elver Park. It is creating a space for teachers, parents, and students to build authentic relationships outside of the classroom. It's called SMASH, which means Surrounding Madison Area Superheroes. So it sounds like you guys got money. You can donate some food, invest in the little people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all to our public speakers and engagement on some very important topics. Bianca, I think you have wanted to debate former presidents in the past. I don't think you've urged me to debate you, but although you are smarter than me, I may just take you up on that. So thank you. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is President's Report. And so we'll start with MSCR and MMSD summer programs and staff. The board would like to thank all MMSD and MSCR staff and administrators for another successful summer school and summer enrichment programming over the last 3 months. Our summer school and summer programming activities can be essential for many students to learn, keep in touch, and stay active and prepared for the upcoming school year. We thank everyone involved for making this past summer a success for our students. The 25th annual 100 Black Men for Back to School celebration. The 100 Black Men of Madison successfully hosted the 25th annual Back to School celebration at Madison College earlier this month. This year, over 1,500 backpacks were filled with school supplies and given to our community youth for the upcoming school year. This tradition started 24 years ago and continues to help so many of our families and students. The board humbly appreciates the 100 Black Men of Madison for organizing this wonderful event and the dozens of other participating volunteers and community organizations for their contributions. I next want to turn this over to Savian Castro, who will acknowledge Madison native Takima Ballantyne, Miss Black USA 2019.
So, 25-year-old Madison native and East High School graduate Takima Ballantyne was crowned Miss Black USA in 2019 at a pageant in Washington, D.C. on August 11th. Takima is currently a nursing student at Madison College, a certified nursing assistant, a coach for Madison East Track and Field, a singer, and volunteer. She is proud to be openly gay and believes it's important to her as a gay woman of color to represent other brown girls who may not feel that they have anyone else to relate to. The board honors Takima in hopes that other female students, LGBTQ students, and students of color can look up to her as a role model who is consistently striving towards success while facing many types of adversity along the way.
Thank you. Next, I want to just read a statement on behalf of the Madison Board of Education, standing against family separation and detention. The Madison School Board stands against the family separation and detention of our families at the southern border, a humanitarian crisis that has separated more than 2,600 children from their families. Children are being detained in conditions that violate not only the laws of our nation, but the spirit of America, a country whose fundamental values include liberty and justice for all. As this is happening at our southern border, we must also consider how immigration enforcement efforts are impacting our local communities. While many in our community are doing their part at fighting at the national level, we have an opportunity here locally to stand against the inhumane treatment of our immigrant children and families. As we prepare ourselves for our children and families next week, let us all ensure that our students and families are accepted with open arms and with love of support, that they are part of our MMSD family. Bettina Love quoted this morning at our teachers' rally, "Schools should not mimic society, but rather schools should be better than society. I couldn't agree more. I am confident that MMSC will continue to be a safe place for our students and families. Thank you. All right, why don't we go ahead and, I've asked for a break. So why don't we go ahead and take a short break, like 3 minutes, and then we'll reconvene.
Thank you, Gloria.
Because we have majority board members in the room? Oh, sure. Do I have it? I don't think I have it. They gave it to me. But... 1, 2, 3, 4.
We need Nikki, Sabian, and...
Do we have majority with 4? We have majority with 4, right, Matt? Okay. We have majority with vote, Matt?
We're only waiting for 2 people.
4, right?
Gloria.
Huh?
Gotta wait.
For who? We're going to get started with the, next on the agenda is the superintendent's announcements and reports.
Thank you. I'd like to say hello to the Madison community, and I'm looking forward to a very productive and wonderful school year for our students, staff, and families. I'm Jane Belmore, and I'm the interim superintendent this year. Every year, the administration prepares an annual report of our progress to go to the school board and to the community. And this year's report is really reflective of progress during our 2018-2019 school year. And it reflects a transition actually from a previous strategic framework, and it indicates progress on the goals of the new strategic framework. It, of course, is not reflective of nearly all of the things that go on importantly in our school, in our district, for our kids. Just to name a few of the things that are not included: our amazing fine arts programs, our beginning and growing focus on student leadership, our value on small class size. And while there are many other things I could mention, at the same time we have some challenges, like the work that we need to do with our reading curriculum. We have a new strategic framework, and it's in a different form, and I want to show you that. How's this go? Where does it go, Barb? Oh, thank you. It's going the wrong way. Okay. So it's in a new form this year, and you can hardly tell it from the slide, but it's a very simple fold-out form. And all of our board members will have copies to distribute, and we'll be getting them out in the schools and a lot of different places in the community. And in addition to that, we have an online report that really contains some wonderful stories about our schools and our students. So it's a little more in-depth. It also has more data than the skinny report, as we're calling it. So in this skinny report, you'll see our new goals, and we have 3 of them. And one of them is very similar to our mission. Every child is on track to graduate college, career, and community ready. And we are seeing steady progress in these goals, especially in reading, math, and completion rates. So you can see those details in the online report and in the skinny report. The second goal and the third goal are really new goals this year, or newly stated goals in the framework that we actually implemented last year, as the first year. So every school is a place where children, staff, and families thrive. And I think that, here we are really focusing on these last 2 questions on our work in racial equity and social justice. And I think, we hear how important that is to our community. And I'll talk a little bit about our Welcome Back rally and the preparation that we've done for school this year, which really is focused on just that. So what we're doing with that second goal is looking at our climate survey in a different way. We've tried to determine what the power questions are, the questions that really give us a sense of how families and students and staff feel connected to school. So it's all about that sense of belongingness and making sure that we're doing the work with every child, especially our Black children, our Black families, to make sure that they are connected to school. And then goal 3 is that African American children and youth will excel in school. Again, this is a new goal, so we've kind of set a baseline on how we're trying to really reflect that and measure that. And so there will be more ways, and also the academic rigor will be included. But for right now, we're kind of looking at the percentage of students in K-8 who identify as Black and who are also identified as advanced learners. And then the percentage of students who are enrolled and participating successfully in our high school advanced placement classes who are also identifying as Black. So those are just some beginning ways that we're going to measure that. There'll be more as we move along, but really highlighting those 2 goals as ways that we want to really expand our view of all of our children in the schools and all of our families, and really work with the strategies that we can to be much more inclusive and taking their needs into account and their strengths, and celebrating Black excellence, which is also called out in our new strategic framework. So what does it look like when strategies take hold over time? It looks like schools breaking through in a lot of different ways. Almost all of our elementary schools have improved in literacy and math, and 12 schools exceeded goals and made even faster progress for African American students. So in those 12 schools, you will see in the online report how they are exceeding their goals in reading. We've made steady progress in half of the middle schools, plus accelerated progress for African American youth. And we still have a lot of work to do on all of these goals, but we will see in all 4 comprehensive high schools, they continue to see progress on GPA, which is a strong predictor of future success, as well as the 4-year graduation rate. The graduation rate for our Black students has increased significantly in all 4 high schools. So we're really pleased to report that we're seeing some progress there. And like I said, we have a lot of work to do, but hopefully we're heading in the right direction. So when academic improvement is bolstered by a strong focus on school climate and student sense of belonging and representation, we think our schools will take off. So as I mentioned in the online report, you'll see student stories like stories of Kevin from Cherokee Heights and other schools, students in other schools highlighted, elementary and middle schools. And this is really to say we're committed to the data that we're reporting in our annual report, but we're even more committed to the students that are represented and stand behind this data. And that's something I think we all need to just continue to remember as we move along this path. In our online report, you can read more stories from students and schools. And then our focus on Black excellence. As we work towards celebrating Black excellence, a Black coalition and a Black think tank a Black excellence think tank have provided a set of recommendations that we will focus on this year. So this is new involvement. We're really excited to see what these 2 initiatives will bring to our work. So I encourage you to visit the online report at the address here for many more details. And then I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of what we've been doing. School leaders, leadership teams, and central office teams began working on August 5th, preparing for welcoming our staff back this week. And last week, over 200 new educators were welcomed to MMSD. And today, we enjoyed a welcome back rally with 5,000 MMSD educators and other staff who support our students and families, all together in one space to hear our very important kickoff messages focused around racial equity and social justice. So it was a really important day for all of us. After we were all together, 5,000 strong, the school teams went back to their schools and had an afternoon of really kind of processing the work and what it's going to mean to their own schools and how they're going to work on this year. So we had some really strong plans with that. And then finally, our school will be beginning on September 3rd. And so between now and that time, our schools and teachers and support staff will be really busy preparing the schools to welcome children, and all of our central office staff will be at schools to support them on that first day of school. And I think that is probably what I have to report. We're very excited about the year. We think we're really well prepared, and it's going to be a year of moving forward on all of our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any of the board members have comments, questions? Go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to, is this on? Yeah. I just wanted to comment quickly on the climate survey goals that I'm seeing in the annual report, and that even though we've highlighted them, I think they are cause for concern. They pretty much tell us that 1 out of 4 of our staff don't enjoy going to work, and that basically a third of our students don't feel like they belong in school. I think these are areas that we need to continue to try to figure out what's going on and do better. I'm also hoping that more detailed climate survey data, not just the power questions, will become available publicly so people can maybe get a better sense of what's happening here with these numbers. And also, I know that we're just kind of getting in gear with the new strategic framework, but there's a lot of metrics in there that we're not reporting yet. I think part of that's because we haven't figured out how we're going to measure growth yet. So just encouraging us to stay on top of making sure we're delivering on the full set of metrics we said that we would deliver on. So
Great, thank you, Chris. Some of that may already be online, but having the online format will allow us to, add as we go. So thank you.
Ananda?
I'm trying to think about how to frame this question, because I understand not everything that we measure is going to fit into here. However, given that we have a growing number of English learners in our district, and I'm not sure if we ever had a explicit goal around English learners. I'm just curious about how do we incorporate, other sets of goals, or do we have goals in which then there's details, objectives that are more encompass particular English learner students, and then our students with IEPs, which are not necessarily mutually exclusive from Black students and advanced learners.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we do have that data, and it's presented in different ways in different reports, and you guys see all those. But, we could certainly take a look at how to incorporate some of that within the strategic plan as well.
I would like to second my colleague Ananda on this. I think that would be very important to try and streamline it so that everyone can see how it works all at once. Also, additional photos of individuals with disabilities with the materials is always welcome.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on August 5th, 2019, and that is Ananda.
Yes, in our last work group, we discussed the English Learners Plan, which we're going to talk a little bit more today. We had, I think, great conversations around both the metrics, understanding what that is, and I had an opportunity to review the report by the evaluator. And I'm really curious tonight on how we're implementing, particularly the recommendations made in a plan, starting by highlighting the ways in which we're looking at English learners, current English learners, and then former English learners, and how we're disaggregating that data.
Great. And then report on items that proceeded through the operations work group. There was no meeting in August, so there's no report. We do have our next meeting is scheduled for September 16th. And on that agenda, possible agenda items are review of operations work group calendar, 2020-21 annual cash flow borrowing update, 2021 and beyond revenue outlook, and policy revisions. Next item, action items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on August 5th, 2019. So we went, as Ananda talked about, we went through the evaluation review cycles in MMSD. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the changes to the continuous improvement evaluation cycles in scaling what works document as set forth in the document prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated August 26, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Just one comment. I think I just wanted to bring another comment, discussion that came from the work group. I just wanted to elevate that. Evaluations are really helpful. Reviewing the data are very helpful. The monitoring piece and how things are implemented is what we really needed to focus on.
Yep, definitely. Chris?
I embrace and I understand the practicality of moving to 5-year review cycles. However, if we're going to do that, I just want to reiterate that we need to do a much better job of reporting what's going on in the monitoring years between plans. We need to both say pretty explicitly what metrics we're going to use in plans and actually be very disciplined about reporting on those metrics in those annual reports to the board. That isn't happening necessarily right now for all of our plans, and I'd like to see us become better about doing that. We also, during the discussion about the cycles of review, we left some loose ends in regards to advanced learning, which I just wanted to make sure stayed on the table. We have an advanced learning plan that runs out in 2020, but we don't have scheduled to get a new plan until beyond that time. I think because of that, we need to do some careful thinking about what we're going to do for monitoring reporting for advanced learning specifically because of this issue with the report running out. We also need to, I think, continue to talk about the timeline for hiring a new advanced learning director and to be much more clear about how schools are going to work with advanced learning specialists and provide programming for all tiers and all domains at all grade levels. These are things that actually aren't spelled out very well in the plan, and if we wait to get a new plan, I'm kind of worried we're going to lose ground with our advanced learners.
Great, both comments. I think that much of what we've talked about, and I'm glad you are reiterating that this was a great conversation in our instruction work groups, and I think it's really good to hear and just to continue to highlight the areas of interest and concerns that you have, and we will just continue to have that. I think our staff who were there in instruction work group noted those, and just I think it's great to just keep bringing it up. Nikki?
Additionally, I'd like to elevate both Chris and Ananda's comments. One, I think that what we decided in the discussion is very important. But two, with the advanced learners especially, we never had a full review of the advanced learners. We're going to go and save for 5 years of the plan that never got a full review to begin with. So on the monitoring, is there any way that we could get a more in-depth monitoring? Because we did get a full review the first time. Because I don't want to leave that out. Is that possible?
Yes, and I think that everything that I heard in that meeting, and I think we have staff who are working on that right now. And
thank you so much.
And looking at that timeline too, which is not as lengthy as it kind of sounds like. So when we look at that, I think we'll definitely get all these points included.
I also would like to amend one of my comments that my colleague made a very good point about, and that is, I meant to say individuals with physical disabilities, as she pointed out, as Ellie pointed out quite correctly. We cannot tell if a person is disabled solely by looking at them, and I got lazy on that, so I would like to amend that to more pictures of individuals with physical disabilities.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it looks like that was discussion. Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Next is action items that proceeded through an operations work group, and again, there was no action items this month. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the August 26, 2019 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board. Second. Can I
So
get a second?
moved.
So moved.
Need to separate.
Okay, yeah, so moved. Second, okay. And then our discussion separations.
I'd like to separate 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, which I will be recusing, those two, 10.10, 10.12, 10.15, and then 10.20.
Any other separations?
And then I wanted to take out 10.21.
10.21,
10.12. I would like to separate 10.16.
10.16. Any other separations? Okay, we are separating 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, 10.12, 10.15, 10.20, 10.21, 10.16.
Oh, actually, add 1033, please.
So 0.21.
10.33.
10.33? Did you, Savian, did you have?
10.21.
10.21, yep.
Yeah,
10.21, yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
And then 10.33.
All right, so we're going to separate those items. Everything else we're going to vote on. Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all the other items have been approved. Now let's just go through. Ananda, do you want to start with yours?
Yeah, I actually wanted to discuss 10.6, 10.7, and 10.12 together. So this is in regards to Omega School contract, Operation First Start, MSCR. And as I read them together, I see that they are part of a comprehensive systems of support. MSCR, the Urban League, being at a prevention and immediate intervention, and then at the other tail end is the Omega School with students getting a GED once they don't have enough credits to graduate for high school. I wanted to point out I couldn't really understand like how we pay all those programs differently. Meaning the Urban League, there was an investment of $300 and some per student. Operation First Start at like some 6,000 and some change, and then Omega School 3,000 per student. And either, I'm not sure if staff is ready to have this conversation or to respond to any of this tonight, but I would love to have a follow-up conversation about like how we do those things, and also how do we choose how many students get to participate in each program. In other words, I can see some argument on decreasing the number of students, for example, in an Urban League, in order to intensify the services, and I can see increasing the number of students in the other end of the spectrum for Omega School, since we know that more than 30 students are, don't qualify, don't have enough credits to graduate in our schools.
Great, so you need clarifying questions. Do you need these questions answered before you approve the contract?
Can someone say anything about them? On anything?
Cynthia, Kelly?
Hi, everyone. So I can try a little to clarify.
Could you use your mic?
Sorry. I can try and clarify a little, at least for the alternative programs. I can't speak to the Urban League contract, but for the alternative programs, we have a variety of alternative programs that we have historically worked with these partners for many, many years. There's two reasons why the contracts look different. One is capacity on the program end, the alternative program end, and two, funding. Each one is approximately the same amount of money when you divide it by student. Students are between $6,500 and $6,900 to serve a student over the year. OFS, Operation Fresh Start, is able to handle a much larger number of students. Omega currently is only able to serve about 10 students at a time, and it takes the students different lengths of time in order to complete their high school equivalency, whether it's the diploma through OFS or whether it's a GED through Omega. One of the reasons why we're kind of shifting this work to the Office of Youth Re-Engagement is to do a further analysis and to really think about program quality, student needs, and how we begin to potentially start shifting dollars and seats based on what we are learning. But I would say that that is kind of an in progress, and so for this year we kept things as status quo as we possibly could to know what we could afford and what each program could have capacity to serve. Does that help a little?
It helps.
Chris?
So specifically with 10.7, Operation Fresh Start, I have a budget question.
Yep.
And that one is that it says it's going to be funded out of the Office of Youth Re-Engagement, but when I dug into the budget book, the purchase services line for the Office of Youth Re-Engagement is $64,500, but there's the cost of Operation Fresh Start is $234,000. I was wondering where the additional funds are coming from out of the budget.
Yeah, so I wrote this up, but I'll explain it for you right now. So what we did in July is, as those funds used to sit under what we call IAE, our Innovative Alternative Education, and that's where those funds were routed to, and that's the org that they used to sit into. What we did in July is we shift those funds to the Office of Youth Re-Engagement, knowing that the Office of Youth Re-Engagement will start to manage and support, along with my department, those programs. So when you get the October budget, you'll actually see that those dollars now show up under the Office of Youth Re-Engagement. So no additional dollars have been added. All we did was shift from IAE, knowing that they really are capital high now and they're kind of functioning as a high school. We're trying to shift some of those former responsibilities out of their shop, if you will, and now into the Office of Youth Re-Engagement.
And so is the same true for the high school equivalency diploma with Madison College?
Yes.
Okay,
so
thanks.
it would also be Gateway to College, it would be Omega, and it would be the Madison College HSED. Those four programs used to sit under IAE, and now are all shifting over to the Office of Youth Re-Engagement. And we did that after you received your budget book, which is why you didn't see that reflected.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'm okay.
All right.
Question on Urban League?
Sure.
Okay, so you pulled the Urban League
Yep.
item, which is different than Cindy oversees the secondary kind of credit bearing. MSCR is in partnership with Urban League, so it's not a credit bearing. So it's a totally different model where we share employees with Urban League, 50% MMSD pays for, 50% Urban League pays for, to provide after school, during and then after school tutoring for students in the middle school. What I wanted to make sure you knew to your earlier comments is that program is currently under like discussion between us and Urban League. We're trying a couple pilots under our innovation model right now that will happen throughout this year in the middle school. We're all thinking about what this program should look like. We're just not there yet in the visioning process, but we will definitely keep you up to date.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Xavier, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask if you could explain the per pupil decrease that happened at Omega a few years ago.
Sure. So Omega had a budget, but they weren't meeting all of the they weren't filling all the expected seats, and then the seats that were in Omega weren't getting to the graduation mark. They
Okay.
weren't getting the credits, and so we had a couple years ago a large partnership meeting, a conversation. We redid the contract. We worked through the model. They had a kind of a new test from the state that they weren't quite there yet. So we've been working with them for a couple of years, kind of through this new model. And that's the time period that the contract was rewritten.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we go ahead and vote for, instead of moving on, let's vote 10.6, 10.7, 10.12. I move the approval of those 3 items.
So moved.
Okay, any
Second.
we already have a second? Okay. Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's move on to 10.8.
10.8, 10.9, I would like to recuse myself.
Okay. 10.10?
I have some comments on 10.8.
Oh, you do, okay.
And again, this is a budget question. When we approved the Early College STEM Academy as part of the priority actions, or whatever we call them this year, the budget that we set for those priority actions doesn't actually match the budget that we're now approving for Early College STEM Academy, so I just wanted to clarify the difference. It looks like the budget book looked like $647,500 total for Early College STEM Academy, but now we're approving $829,000 for Early College STEM Academy. So again, I'm just wondering where the difference is coming out of the budget.
I think that's Cynthia again.
Probably another move.
Yeah, you should just stay here, yeah.
Hello again. I have this in a document to send you as well, so I just want to pull it up and explain what I can tonight and then have you look at it as well. So the Early College STEM Academy exists into 2 cohorts. There is a cohort of 25 students at the rate of $6,900 that are going into their second year, and that equals $172,500. Most of that is absorbed by the carryover of the $175,000 that was approved last year from the board as a priority add. This year, we're adding a second cohort, which is 101 students at $6,500. That total is $6,500 and something, because I'm not a math person. It's a little over $650,000, just to clarify, Chris. With that, we asked for a $200,000 budget add, the board approved. We have $50,000 that's coming out of our early college credit program. We have $165,000 that we get reimbursed from Madison College because we have 2 teachers that are teaching over there that are MMSD teachers, and within our MOA, that's an agreement. I don't know that those dollars were captured in your budget. And then the last I will say is we have a line to absorb the remaining funds through fundraising efforts, which gets our total of the $829,000.
it was the teachers who weren't in the
I figured
party
that's what
action.
it
So
was.
that explains it. How are we looking on the fundraising? Do we think we're going to get there?
We are very close, and I am extremely hopeful that we will have some information at the end of this month. I'll still share the document with you afterwards, just so you have it, and then if we need to have anything reflected in the budget book as well.
Nikki?
Just a quick comment. Thank you first for all your work. This is a lot of work, and I appreciate it. Is just one suggestion, if possible, could we get the memo on certain things before we approve them if the accounting is any different? If we can just get like an update, just a little email set out.
Absolutely.
Is that doable, or would that take too much time? I don't want to overtax anyone. I just want to make sure that that's doable.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote on 10.8 and 10.9. I move that we approve 10.8 and 10.9. Can I get a second? Okay. Anika, your advisory vote? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to? Yes, yep. Or,
I'm recusing myself from 10.8, 10.9.
okay. Great. You got that, Barb? Okay. All right, 10.10.
Okay. Yeah, I know I sent an email earlier about trying to understand that program, and also curious about where the students are coming from that are participating. I know that you had like 2 tracks, but yeah, if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Again, this is another data set that I will make sure you get that we put together. The question is around our contract with the chamber and what students we're serving, where are they coming from. So we have kind of, as you mentioned, Ananda, we have 2 tracks. We have a large experiential learning opportunity that our people work on with our business and industry partners. That starts at 6th grade. So we have events that hit all middle school students called Schools Make a Difference, which is one of those events where we bring in business and industry partners to talk to students. We have some other experiences where students are able to go and visit business and industry or do experiential learning field trips. So all of that happens. We also do work-based learning where students are earning credit, and we track that as well. And that spans starting with students that are in the summer of their 8th grade going into freshman year all the way through high school. So that is any student going into high school plus our 6 high schools, students have access to that. And then kind of the other track we have is our youth apprenticeship programming. We have a pre-youth apprenticeship programming. We have about 170 students kind of in the pipeline that complete applications and are interested in that. And then we actually have students that are actually in our youth apprenticeship, having a youth apprenticeship while studying high school. And that right now is about 30 students. I am happy to share in a document the demographic breakdowns. I think one or both of you both asked for that, but we kind of have this larger umbrella of all of these experience for students, and then this deep study into the youth apprenticeship that is supported not only by people on my team, but also our partnership with the chamber.
So let me share very clearly what my concern lies. I mean, all of it, what you said is really pretty amazing. I'm really trying to hone in into like how do we create opportunity gaps around this, and particularly when we talk about issues of race and students with IEPs and so on. So that's what I've been looking for. I'm not sure if you have. I know that for the youth apprenticeship program, it's it's an application. But for the other piece where there's going to be multiple opportunities potentially in different schools, how are we making sure that we're not just widening the gap by the students that we know that tend to have more of a social capital end up accessing those opportunities at a higher rate than our students with IEPs or students of color.
So I would say I agree with you, and I think that it has been a work in progress. And this year we have been more intentional, and I actually even talked to Nichelle recently about how to do better family engagement opportunities, because what we learned even with our pre-apprenticeship for Youth Apprentice, we're getting families that know about that information or families that seek that information out themselves. And so we do have a targeted approach this year, and one of our goals, and one of the goals that we committed to with the board last year when we brought up our youth apprenticeship data, was to ensure that we are increasing for our students of color specifically, because for youth apprenticeship, it is not very diverse. Pre-apprenticeship it is, but not when it actually gets to youth apprenticeship. So that's a goal of ours as well, and I would agree that it's a work in progress.
Chris?
So philosophically, I take issue on some level with using public money to subsidize the private sector through the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. I would actually hope the opposite would happen, that the private sector would actually help subsidize us. I would just like to know more about how our public monies, like a lot more detail about how our public monies are being used in these programs, just to maybe clarify my own thinking about this.
So I'm happy to share our budget breakdown with you as well when I send the data report on that. Part of it is to fund an actual human resource, to fund a person that is one of the people that is going out and building our relationships with our business and industry, so that we are able to bring our students there, so that we are able to have students do internships, so that we're able to have job shadow. So that is part of the work, and then additional dollars go to supports for the students in terms of transportation and needs like that. But I'm happy to give you a more detailed budget if you need.
Is it an MMSD employee? Or?
Yes, yes.
Nikki?
Is it possible that we remove that item until we get such information? I think that would really help my vote quite a bit, because I like parts of the program very much, but I would like to see how individuals of color are represented. I would like to see how individuals with disabilities are represented, and I'm just wondering if that information could be provided so we could file it later. Would be much easier.
I just want to speak on this. I mean, I think, all excellent points. This is a great opportunity for our students. And it is our responsibility as a school district to provide these opportunities and these partnerships in our community. For us not to move forward on this right now just because we don't have the data and we don't have the specific information, I mean, we will get it. But this is an opportunity for us. I think that the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce is a great partnership for us in moving forward and opening doors for our students to these opportunities. And I disagree. I think we should go ahead and vote on this tonight and get the information that is needed and assess progress as we move forward. So, I mean, I think that, it is time that we take risks. It is time that we open our doors to opportunities for our children that are normally not available. And we have the most diverse board to make this program accountable to what we want. And so for us not to move forward on this, I think it would not help our students today. Ali?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to not necessarily being vested in delaying the vote on this particular item, although I understand your concerns, Nikki, and I think you've spoken to them very clearly. I greatly appreciate your ability to bring clarity. I also don't want to delay a person's ability to occupy a position as MMSD staff or delay students' abilities to have internships or participate. And so I think the more responsible thing to do is to vote and monitor and to receive additional information as soon as possible. Thank you very much for speaking to the concerns of the board, Cynthia. I appreciate it.
The last thing I would say is, to all of that, I would say we hold us accountable. We are committed. We've looked at our entire process for youth apprenticeship, which has some guidelines, as you know, per the state, and have revamped it and have really been thinking about where we've identified barriers and where we need to make adjustments. So I feel confident that those demographics will change as this year goes on, and students will have more opportunities. But yeah, I'll just pause there.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, for
Ananda and Sevian.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Cindy, for clarifying that for us. I will say that I do get a little uncomfortable when we have a great opportunity knocking on our door, but we haven't necessarily created systems where we're not interrupting the gaps, and then potentially perpetuating them or increasing them. I also find it complicated in a small line item, having a lot of discussion. It conflicts with my leadership style. I will say that, specifically given like where we are with budgets and how tight we are and having lots of conversations around compensation and so on, I think that gets heightened up for me. So I'm really curious when you come back to us with some monitoring ways in which you're monitoring the program, or how you're communicating them with us, that I will definitely have less tolerance for trying, so it'll be like the expectation will be much higher, because I feel like I'm, kind of trusting pretty blindly here on some of the things that you were saying. Yeah, and at the same time, really hopeful that this is going to be something that sounds very promising to our students.
Savion, and then Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to, acknowledge the concerns that well-intentioned projects can unintentionally increase, equity gaps that we're looking to address. But I do think that it's one of the more important things we can do as a district is allow students opportunities to explore, their interests, especially with respect to their careers and how, they want to see themselves in the world as an adult, especially as, the city is about to undergo a lot of growth economically. I think this is really important to make sure that, it's really important that we allow students these opportunities so that we can, affect economic inequality in the city in a good way.
Chris, and then we'll move on.
Pardon my ignorance, I'm actually just kind of confused. If some of this money is paying for an MMSD employee, why does it have to go through this process? Like, usually MMSD employees are just on payroll. So I'm confused about, you said that a bunch of the money was used to pay an employee who helps to do coordination, but if that person's an MMSD employee, we wouldn't be having a contract. I'm just confused.
Yeah.
It's a dumb question, maybe.
No, it's not a dumb question. I don't have the answer for you. We've had this partnership with the chamber for a few years, and it was before I took over this department, so I actually don't have the answer of why it goes through this process. I'm happy to get you the answer, but I don't have an answer for you. And it's not a dumb question.
Okay, 10.10, I move that we approve this contract, 10.10.
Second.
Okay, Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition?
Nay, with comment, I wish I could support this. I really do. I can't without the data, but I really do like the idea.
Motion passes. On to the next one, 10.15.
Connected.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for staying up here.
It was a lot of items, you all. This item is around Connect Ed, which sounds a fantastic way in order to integrate pathways and support our staff implementing the program. My question was like, when was this contract started? When is this, or is it starting? Is this the first year? What was the last year? I can't remember now. Maybe it was that in the memo. But mostly, I have experience both personally with my own daughter at La Follette, but also observing La Follette teams struggling to integrate content into instruction, into just the everyday core instruction particularly. So if you can speak a little bit about giving us some clarity around what is this partnership doing differently or enhancing or otherwise. Thank you.
So the Connected Partnership, it is not a new contract. It is our third year with the organization, and they have been working with our teacher teams, and they've been working with the new Pathways teacher teams and also the teacher teams that have been in place for the last 2 years. One note is that we did have quite a few teacher turnover in our first year, so in some ways we're starting new professional development and also refining. But they work specifically to help our core teachers build out a scope that helps them identify skills and knowledge that would connect across classrooms. So the idea of interdisciplinary connections and thinking about that. They also have been working with our teacher teams on their integrated projects, helping them think about the theme and then how to develop that integrated project, as well as kind of a cycle of inquiry and refinement. The last thing that we just started with our teacher teams this summer is more project-based learning. So not just this idea of an integrated project in a semester, but more how they're thinking about project-based learning throughout the entire year. So that is the ways that they have been supporting us. They also have helped us with our connections to our business and industry and to our industry partners that come into those spaces to help make connections to the content and curriculum of business and industry. So mostly all about curriculum development. The one thing I will say, and Ananda, I think you know this, is the time it takes for the teachers is the one thing that we keep identifying is there's needing more time. I think the professional development they're getting is wonderful. The time that they need to develop and really rethink about their curriculum is the place where we just need more time.
Mm-hmm. So
does that clarify?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you giving kind of the history around the partnership. What I'm still curious is how are we monitoring their quality? You did mention that the professional learning is great, but like what are some of the outcomes? Like how do we say like, yeah, this is the best organization for this type of professional learning?
So we asked them last year to do a full analysis or assessment of how are we doing in terms of implementation of Pathways from more of a community level, a district level, a school level, and a teacher team level, and helped us think about where have we done well, where do we still need support, where have they provided that support. Happy to share that with you, but that was also where I wanted to get, because the idea is that we're building internal sustainability. Curriculum and instruction has really kind of started to come on board with us, and we hope that in time they will phase out, and we have built the internal capacity to be able to run this continuously, and so that's why we asked for that analysis. So we have an assessment of kind of where we are.
Thank you, Cindy.
Chris?
So my issue with this and with some other things in Pathways is the fact that the Joyce Grant is not run through MMSD, but the fact that it's run through the Foundation for Madison's Public Schools. To me, this is a transparency issue. I don't understand how that grant fits into the overall Pathways budget. I've never seen a budget or a budget narrative for that grant. And without that information, I don't feel like as a board member, I can make good decisions about how we're spending the Joyce Grant. So because we don't have transparency and we don't have good information about that grant, I feel like I can't support this.
Any other discussions? Okay, let's go ahead and vote 10.15. I move to approve 10.15. Second. Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
We got 2 nays. Chris and Nikki. Okay, motion passes. Next item is 10.20.
I think I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, I'm not, yeah, 10.16.
Thanks, Cindy.
So this is the
Brian.
nonviolent crisis intervention training, and this is a great program. And it's I just wanted a clarification of what is included in a flex training seat. It seems like a very low cost, and I just wanted to make sure that they're getting the full training. Lots of staff are asking for this, so.
I've heard this.
Yeah, so what is before you here is the training seats or flex seats. It's a blended curriculum that has both an online component and an in-person component. And so this is for the purchase of the flex seats for recertification. So we have it where we're recertifying staff every 2 years in this program. And if you notice the expenditure last year, you can tell it's quite significantly more. And that was for the initial training seats. So there are two different types of training. Initial for staff that have never been trained in this model before, and then every 2 years they'll be trained in the recertification seats. Given that we did this switch over a year and a half ago, we're anticipating a little over 600 between now and next August that will need the recertification training. During that time, we'll also be training additional staff in the initial training. Up to this point, we're at about 1,400 staff have been trained in the new model in that year and a half.
How many new staff do you think you'll be training this year?
We would be anticipating there are approximately 2,600 staff that fall into the mandatory category based on Act 125. In addition to that, we're working with schools and other staff members to train more on all of the proactive components, so the online module as well as some in-person aspects of the training without necessarily all of the physical holds and disengagement skills.
That's really helpful, thank you. Again, I'm hearing lots of staff wanting that training on the proactive side, so the more we can do, that's great. Thank you.
Great, okay, that was 10.16. Let's just move forward and then we'll approve the last four ones together. Unless you got a recusal, Ananda, on anybody? Okay. 10.20. Thank you.
So I understand that developmental design professional learnings has like a trainer component. Hi. Thanks for joining us. Can you talk a little bit about, because looks like last year we did pay for the trainer, but then this year we have additional allocation for that. Can you speak a little bit on that, please?
Absolutely. There's a couple pieces to that. We have 4 internal facilitators that are MMSD employees, and we can offer trainings at a fairly significant discount in terms of total cost to the district if we use an internal facilitator. There is a pretty significant cost to get one of our employees up to that facilitator level. We're shifting the approach that we're using in trying to train large groups of staff or teams of teachers all from the same school so that they can experience the training together and experience the follow-up together. And in trying to meet the capacity of the schools that we're trying to train this fall, we have all 4 of our in-district facilitators, but to meet the demands of one school in particular, then we added in another Origins facilitator so that they could train that significant group of their staff. So it's sort of a blended approach where we're using all of our internal facilitators, and despite having invested in those 4 staff that have been doing trainings for us over the course of the summer and into this fall, we did need to bring down 1 additional developmental designs facilitator from Origins. We're also hoping to sort of multitask those visits, so to speak, in that we're hoping to move 2 more of our district staff to facilitator status over the course of the next 18 months or so. And so that when that Origins staff member is here, we can continue moving some of our staff members along, again, with a bit of a discount towards their progress towards facilitator status.
Thank you, Jay, for that. Since you have the microphone, can you speak a little bit of the efficacy of the DD model?
Yeah, we believe wholeheartedly in the DD model. I think through the new behavior education plan, our 4 foundational practices, are all covered fairly thoroughly by the DD model, and so that's why we continue to invest in that as an approach, is that that training in particular puts more skills into the hands of our teachers that we see playing out in classrooms, and so we continue to move towards trying to move towards getting as many of our staff trained as possible, as quickly as possible, but not just to check the box. And we know that if they go through that training with the teachers that they're working with and planning with, we're more likely to see that in conversation and playing out in classrooms. And so we believe that we're taking the right approach and moving as quickly as we can, and using the budget obviously as responsibly as we can. Thank you so much.
Chris?
So I appreciate Ananda's questions, and actually I'd like to just dig a little bit deeper. Having talked to an instructional coach about this, there was some concern about using coaches versus using trainers to provide that ongoing support to staff that they need throughout the year to really implement this program right. And I wanted to hear more about that, because the impression I got was that it's much more effective to actually have trainers working with teachers throughout the year, and moving to a coach model might reach more people but might not actually help us implement developmental designs at the level we need to. So I just wondered if you could say more about that.
Sure, absolutely. So our 4 in-district trainers, beyond doing those formal 4-day trainings, they're also doing support, which might mean meeting with a group of staff at a certain school on a PD day or a Monday early release to sort of continue discussing with them use of practices and supporting that. During all of those sessions, our instructional coaches are quite often plugged in, which then helps the instructional coaches understand here's what that coaching looks like from a DD facilitator for someone who's working in a classroom. We now have 3 of our 4 in-district facilitators working out of central office, which frees them up to be able to sit in on teacher team meetings and be a little bit more flexible in terms of exactly when they're following up. We also still have 19 peer coaches within the district, but because it's really difficult for us to free up people who are otherwise classroom teachers, we see the majority of them are supporting staff within their own buildings with moving that forward. But I think it is more robust if it's an actual DD facilitator following up with staff who've been through a training.
That's really helpful, thank you. And then my other question is about time. Like, what are we doing to make sure that our staff actually have enough time to switch their teaching methods to be more aligned with DD?
Another good question. So I think the initial investment of time of 4 days for the full training is pretty significant. But we also realize that that's sort of enough to really shift and give them sort of a full set, or full understanding of how all of those practices play out in an ongoing way. And because we're now working with like teams of teachers and cohorts from an entire school, we're seeing it play out in those Monday early release meetings. We're seeing it play out in team meetings, and we're also seeing it then pop up on subsequent professional learning days, because that's what the staff is collectively working to do. And so by sort of embedding it into the conversations that they're having regularly, then the time to implement it comes embedded in all the work that they do together.
All right. That was 10:20. On to 10:21. 10.21.
Yep. So I do have some concerns about this contract with Securely. He's looking at some of the data from the Dane County Youth Assessment in 2012. 25% of students reported feeling anxious or worried. 22% reported feeling depressed. 2018, those numbers were 35 and 28% respectively. So I definitely understand, the need to address some of these issues of mental health in the district. Just concerned whether surveillance like this is the best way to do it, and whether that builds trust with students, and also concerned, when a student does receive a technological device, is it communicated with the student and family that they are being surveilled in this way?
Did you have a specific question?
Yeah, so who in the schools has specific access to this data?
So the first part of your question is who is made aware. So each student in our district receive an email from me letting them know that Securely is an app that has been pushed out to their computers via email so that they are aware. Parents are also made aware that this does exist, and they're also trained so that they have access, so that they can monitor and set up different blocks when students are using the devices at home.
Nikki, just let him answer the question, please. Thank you.
That's it.
Data, as far as the actual data that exists, the only data that happens if there's an alert that is sent out, that data point is then shared or sent to the administrator of that student's building for that administrator to work directly with that student regarding the information that has been passed via email or via what Securely is looking at.
Savian, did that answer your question? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Nikki and then Ali?
I did not mean to step on you, Savian. I apologize on that. My issues with this are quite a few. I am a strong believer in mental health, in mental health supports. I'm a strong believer in disability supports. I'm a strong believer in the Fourth Amendment. It's the last one that gives me pause, that I worry that this data can be used if a child makes a threat out of depression, that he's going to do something and he may not, that could be used in a criminal conviction. And that does worry me. And because it's technically possible. It also worries me on the privacy issue. We want our teens to trust. We want them to talk to us. And I understand that that's not always possible. And I get that. And I understand, and I'd love to read minds, but I'm not sure taping is the number one issue. I think that the money would be spent better on increasing counselor services personally, to discuss it head-on, or to work with Bounce Back to actually handle the situation directly. I don't think monitoring someone electronically is going to help. In fact, I'm afraid that it'll be worse. Additionally, I worry if they're able to, if the system can be easily hacked, and that also worries me.
So I do want to just address the part about the sense of, without using this form of securely, what's important is that it's only looking for and monitoring and filtering anything that's regarding bullying, harm to others, and harm to self. Anything else, it's not actually pushing or alert to anyone else to know what's going on. Without this, there's no way for us to know when bullying, harm to self or harm to others is happening with devices that we're issuing and giving to our students.
Ali?
TJ, we talked about this pretty extensively, so I really appreciate the information that you gave during that meeting. Some of the information that I asked you all follow up with pretty specifically was information regarding intervention around self-harm and intervention around suicide or suicide attempt and suicide completion. Because my work is specific to LGBTQ youth, we see data on a regular basis around self-harm and suicide and attempt of suicide, very specific to that community that is overrepresented within those areas. And so I am not aware of any significant decrease in self-harm attempts or completions. I am aware of students who have completed suicide within MMSD over the course of the last 6 years and can probably name the vast majority of those young people. And so I think being really specific to how this actually decreases that is one thing that I would like, information I would like you to provide. The other thing I think Nikki hinted at is that over and over again we have invested in school safety. We have a school safety budget that is millions of dollars and not necessarily produce the results that we're looking for. And so I think to spend more on school safety at this point is something that we really have to take into serious consideration. The other aspect of that is when we have spent money on school safety, over and over again, those resources have been used to incriminate students. And so there is a real fear that this monitoring or electronic monitoring could be utilized to, monitor for whether or not students are engaging in certain adolescent behavior. Are students engaging in sexual expression that we disapprove of? Are students engaging in drug use that we disapprove of? And are we using their devices as a means to curb that behavior, address that behavior, criminalize that behavior?
So I think we actually provided some information once before. And, you know, this is only our first year with Securely as a district. Last school year was. What we know is that nationwide, Securely has been able to stop 422 suicide attempts within the school districts that we work in, that they work in. What we know is that Securely has helped us personally to stop at least 2 that we know of, suicides, and one of those even being a parent who's also a teacher within the district. Without Securely, we would not have been able to know like those situations and issues are happening. It's also important to know that we also have a training with all of our administrators so that they understand, and those individuals, when the principals are appointing them as a designee, that they are the social workers and they are like the counselors who's getting those alerts, so they're the ones working with them. It's not so much like just a random teacher who might not know that individual student. It is someone who can help that student who's free, not attached to a class, so that they're able to work immediately to respond to that alert with that particular student. So is it, I'm going back to your original question, like everybody is seeing that data? There's only a number of individuals on each campus who's seeing it.
May I
And then,
just
just a
ask
second.
a follow-up?
Just a second, Nikki, I just want to make a comment
Thank
here.
you,
They are, Securely is on the district's computers, right?
For students only, and that's
students
important. So
only.
it's an app that's pushed out to all of our student-issued devices.
Student-issued devices, okay? So this is not personal cell phones, it's not personal iPads, it's not personal computers. And I think that in this day and age where our students are using computers to communicate, to search, and it may not be a lot right now that we have documents that we've saved, but I tell you, if we can save one student, I mean, come on. I mean, I know that I take security seriously, right? Safety in our schools. But geez, if we can save one student, right, who has Googled how to, you know, commit suicide, right? And we get an alert on that. I mean, if it was my child, I mean, I just would want to know about it. I would find that information of value. And then on the other hand, if we get a student who's searching, how do I bomb a school? I don't know if that's one of the key searches, the key words, but it's not like you're not getting alerts on what do I wear tomorrow,
No.
or you know what's the best outfits today. You're actually monitoring certain words and alerts, right? You're not monitoring.
Correct. And what's also important to note is the reason why this is also so important, 2 reasons. One, this is going to be our first year where we're going to be in all of our high schools, and so that's really going to increase our traffic with one-to-one devices. Last year we were just in La Follette. The second issue is that what this also does is provide us with around-the-clock protection to allow someone to always be monitoring when students are using the devices in the evening time. If we remove this, then what will happen is that teachers and staff can monitor during the school time. But our concern is what it's going to do is make them feel pressure to want to have to check their emails constantly throughout the night and on the weekend. What this will do will allow us to have someone to do it around the clock, and we'll work on the nights and weekend with our district staff in order to make sure we have something in place. So now we're providing around the clock protection for our students.
Okay, Nikki, and then we'll move on.
I think Chris and Ananta as well.
Yes, both.
Also were waiting, and I didn't want to cut them off. I just had one comment, one question. I'll go with the question first. Under the new mandated reporter act that has just been passed, would anyone who saw that video be required to turn it into the police?
What video?
With the new mandated reporter act, you have to report anyone who is a threat to themselves or others. Would that tape have to be turned over? Because that would be evidence of someone being a threat to themselves or others. Are we making every teacher who sees it have to turn it over based on that statute? I worry about that.
Matt?
Yeah, so that particular mandatory reporting statute requires our staff to report any incidents of school violence. So, for instance, if there was, say, a communication saying, I'm going to bring a gun tomorrow to shoot up the school, that would be a mandatory reporter incident. However, I would also add that I would hope if that student said that to a teacher outside of the electronics, that teacher would also have to report that as well. So I'm not sure securely changes the game, but it's a good point that some reports that are caught by securely will be required to be reported to police under the new mandatory reporting laws.
And it's important to add to that, what Matt is saying is that not all teachers receive the alert. Only the designees that the principal assigned per campus,
But
so it's not all teachers.
I didn't
Okay.
ask it.
Who's first, Ananda or Chris?
I actually had
Chris?
the one comment really quickly.
Can you just hold your comment, because you guys haven't commented on this, so let's go here and then we'll come back to you, Nikki.
Sure.
So I just have a quick question. I really appreciate your sending me Securely's privacy policies. That was really helpful. What is the district doing with this information?
So-
Where does this end up in a student's file? What happens once
So
you
it
get
does
an
not
alert?
end up in any student file anywhere. We are literally just using it to support the students. It's not stored. None of that information is stored on any individual student.
One more question, and this might actually be more for Matt. I'm just wondering, now that we're giving kids one-to-one devices and we're letting them take them home, do we have liability if we don't catch something?
Good question.
So what the guidance that we've given thus far is that we do not have liability after school hours to monitor these devices. That's guidance that educators, well-meaning educators, find hard to comply with because of the very situation of if I miss that email on a Saturday night and something happens on Sunday, how can I live with myself? There's that mentality. But we have given the guidance that they should not be checking it over the weekend because of this very issue. We don't have 24-hour employees. So I do not believe there's liability for after hours. But again, there's that desire to have that monitoring. So.
Ananda?
Thank you, TJ, for indulging us in this. I didn't know it was going to generate so much conversation. I probably needed to have you. So I appreciate you considering every question kindly and so generously sharing with us and helping us understand. I think what's coming up for me with this conversation is our own policies are protecting students, right? And I think that to me is the most salient. I think that this country has this history of creating policies that are in the best interest of a particular group or safety of a particular group, and then we see criminalization of the same group that once we said that we wanted to protect. And I think, to me, that's one of the most salient sort of sentiments in this conversation. So I'm curious on how we can, and I'm part of the policy committee along with Nikki, I'm curious to what are some of other districts potentially have kind of updated their policies around technology that would protect them in case, protect and prevent the criminalization of their behavior in a ways that we don't end up with unintended consequences. So I think that, I don't know if that was clear.
It is. I think it's work that we definitely can do as a district. I think even now I'm taking a stance of being very proactive. And so for me, what that means is I have to make sure I'm informing parents of what, and being transparent of where we are and what we're doing. But I do believe we do need to begin to think about how we create policies that really protect our students to ensure the data that we're pulling from, whether it's securely or something else down the line, it does not harm the student, but it really is in a place that's really doing what we're doing best, and that's making sure that they are safe and secure.
And I think even in addition, and my daughter has been a victim of cyberbullying. I speak this from like first person experience. Like, I do not want this young child to end up being in a criminal justice system when there was something happening in the school. Like, I wanted those issues to be, not become criminal outside of the school because of the use of the device, because a more material proof that you have, right? I wanted to be able to but what are some of the policies that needed to be in place so we know how to act when those things emerge?
I agree, and it's definitely work to be done, but I do want to say this, though. One of the things we are attacking at, so I want to be clear and say, no, there's not a set policy in place. However, we do have things in place to kind of help us with that. And so one of the things that I'm charging my library and media technology specialist to do is in our digital citizenship classes and lessons that talk through the library, we do a really good job of making sure we're introducing that to our students. So though we don't have a district policy, what we're doing is trying to make sure we're educating our student on what it means, what cyberbullying looks like, what does it mean to be someone to stand up for them when they see it, even if it's just not you. So these are just some things that we're kind of doing, but the policy will be great, and I think that's work that we all can do.
Okay, Nikki, one more, and then we're on.
Yes. I'm going to give a brief hypothetical. What happens if a student is doing a science paper on, for example, the Oklahoma City bombing? They want to research how the bomb had been used in a previous issue and typed in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where the bomb happened to be first made. Now, does it show up as a threat? Does it show up as an assignment? How do we make sure that we don't get a legitimate assignment? FYI, I actually did that assignment in 1995. I don't think I'd be allowed to do it now, but I did do it. So I'm wondering how we can make sure.
There's no Google in 1995.
I know, I went to every library and my parents were on campus during the bombing.
So I think, Nikki, to answer it directly, is I want to go back to who's receiving the alerts. Two things. One, who's receiving the alerts, and two, the possibility that the teacher can do. So as a classroom teacher, if I am a teacher who is having my students to do work on a classroom bombing, under the new security that we're going to be implementing this semester, teachers can create approved lists for their students to be able to go and search and do that. The second part of that is that we encourage our staff who's receiving the alert. When you receive the alert, it's about building a relationship and having a conversation with the student before we just assume and just go to act. So it's important that we understand who's the ones who are receiving the alert and other things that the classroom teacher is able to do.
Great, okay. On to the next one. Thank you.
I'm actually passing on 1033.
That was the last one, 1033. Okay, you're passing. All right, so I move to approve 10.16, 10.20, 10.21, 10.33. Can I get a second? Did I miss?
Yeah. You have to do individual.
She's taking it off.
I thought we were doing them individual votes.
I know, but I just thought we'd do it together.
Because my vote is different.
All right, let's go. Vote on, I move to pass 10.16.
Second.
Okay, Nika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I move to approve 10.20.
So moved.
Second.
Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I move to approve 10.21.
So moved.
Second.
Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
My vote's nay.
Motion passes.
I just want to make sure my vote
I move
was
to
recorded.
approve 10.33.
So moved. Second.
Anika, your advisory vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Barb, did you get my vote on that 10.21? Thank you so much.
Motion is approved. All right, we are done with the consent agenda. Thank you all. Great discussions. Next, we have other reports to the board. City of Madison Education Committee.
City of Madison Education Committee did not have quorum. We are
Are you
meeting
still-
September.
We both are.
We both are.
Oh, okay.
If you would like, Ananda could definitely.
No, I thought that had changed, but no, go ahead.
The City Education Committee didn't have quorum. We're meeting September 11th at the Warner Park Shelter at 5 p.m. Hopefully, we are looking forward to a good meeting. Looks like a newer organization structure, and I have some high hopes for it.
Okay, great, thank you. It did change.
Oh, I didn't know
Okay.
that.
Okay, sounds good. Next is Student Senate.
Student Senate will start moving in early September.
Okay, great, thank you. Madison School and Community Recreation Advisory Committee?
Yes. They met on August 21st, 2019 to review bylaws, transition to the new format and schedule, and prepare a report to the to our board. That would be the Board of Education, along with the new committee members. Our next meeting is September 18th.
Great, thank you. Other business, educational equity tool. Okay, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the MMSD Educational Equity Tool pursuant to BOE Policy 9001 and is set forth in the document prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated August 26, 2019.
So moved.
So moved by Ananda, second by Carusi.
Sure.
Discussion? Okay, go.
Just a quick comment, and that is, I fully support this, but I would actually like to get something in writing about, to help guide us in terms of making decisions about when we use this tool. So that would
Yes.
be really helpful.
Definitely.
I would find that really helpful.
You got that, Nichelle? Okay. Anika, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item for other business is a proposed amendment to tax incremental district, TID number 35. It is recommended that the Board of Education instruct Representative Chris Carusi to support the proposed amendment to tax incremental district number 35 at the next meeting of the Joint Review Board on September 5th, 2019. Can I get a second?
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Second. Discussion?
So I think it'd probably be easier to talk about TID 35 and TID 41 at the same time.
Okay.
So just to give everybody a sense of what's going on, these are two existing tax incremental districts in the city. They're both performing extremely well, especially TID 35, which is located near Todd Drive. TID 41 is the new UW Health Complex off of like Old Middleton Road and Whitney Way. At the same time, we have TID 38, which is a TID that just had the misfortune of being created right before the Great Recession, and it has never recovered the tax base value it had before the recession. So this TID needs some funding just so that we can close it. The funding would just get us back up to where we were before the Great Recession hit. So the plan is to take some funds out of TID 35 and TID 41, first of all, just to close TID 38, and the second is to do infrastructure improvements in the neighborhoods around these tax incremental districts. There is a half-mile rule that goes with tax incremental districts where you can do improvements on property that is not on the assessment rolls using TID money. So this money would go into things like lighting in neighborhoods that need additional lighting. It would go into street repair that wouldn't be able to be assessed to individual homeowners or businesses. I think these are a good thing to do. Some considerations is that both, because these TIDs are high performing, it won't actually harm the payouts we get from these TIDs, and we're in a good position once these TIDs go back onto the tax rolls to be getting a lot more tax revenue out of these districts. The amendments don't delay moving these properties back onto the tax rolls, which is a huge consideration and a major reason to support them. And finally, all of the infrastructure improvements are non-assessable, which is a requirement for doing them. The TID board meets on September 5th, so I'm in need of your guidance at this point. And Kelly, did I mess up or miss anything?
Amazing, thank you. You did a great job. Okay, anything else? Any questions for Chris? All right. Nika, your advisory vote? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. For the 35 and 41.
I think we just
just
moved
moved
for
Oh, did we?
35 and 41 separately.
Okay, that's right.
do that real
Okay.
quick.
I move that we approve the tax incremental district number 41.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Okay. Anika, your advisory vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We don't have any old or new business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Anika, your advisory vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for a great meeting tonight.